Welcome to Kicking It Local, the podcast all about the football community in South Australia. I'm your host, Johnny Kecko, and today, kicking it comfortably, all thanks to Macron Sports Hub Adelaide, providing clubs and sports podcasters with the teamwear needs. macronstoreadelaide.com.au, the place to go to get your gear today. And in the lead up to the Women's World Cup this year, it's a huge year for women's football in Australia. I'll be interviewing guests that are involved in the women's game and also some involved in the Matildas setup. And today's guest was the head coach of the Matildas 20 years ago in the 2003 World Cup. And it's a pleasure to be chatting with him today. And he's also the under-13s coach, girls coach at Fulham United. Adrian Santrac, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure to be here, Johnny. Thank you for having me.
It's 20 years since you coached the women in the World Cup. Who would have thought 20 years later you'll be able to go and witness the World Cup in our home stadiums?
Mate, fair point. Yeah, I mean, 20 years. I had no idea. Hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah.
You know, so many times you've heard, the World Cup 223. It's coming. It's in our backyard. But I didn't even think about it. It's 20 years since. I was lucky enough to coach the girls in the USA in the World Cup there.
Yeah, it's come a long way as well, women's football. I want to talk. Well, it definitely has, hasn't it?
It has. Oh, it's incomparable. Massive. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that in depth a little bit later on. There's heaps to get through, especially your own career playing and coaching. But the first point I want to talk about, your birthday, the 29th of June.
It is. Where'd you get that from?
Don't worry where I got it from, but that's the exact same as mine. We got the exact same birthday.
Really?
There you go.
Well done. Good Cancerian.
There we go. Yeah. So not only have we got one thing in common, we love football, but we also are born on the same day. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about 5 times older than you, but no, that's cool.
There you go. So I think you were 36 when I was born, I reckon. So not too bad. We're not too far apart. Not too far apart.
I wish I was 36 now. 36 would be great.
Well, I'm close to 30 next year, so I'm getting old as well. But it's all good, mate. Well, at least we got a celebration in a couple of weeks' time as well. So look forward to that. But let's go back to before I was born, when you were playing in the NSL. West Adelaide, Adelaide City. You got to play for both of those clubs in the NSL. What was that time like? 170 games as well across that period. How was that?
Good fun. Yeah, the good old, what I call the good old days. Great memories.
Yeah.
One of only a handful of players, I suppose, that played for both teams, West Adelaide and Adelaide City. Oddly enough, I'd played for West Adelaide first. That was back in '82. I was on loan from Beergrove Woodville back then, and then during that year, I did my knee, did my ACL. West Adelaide decided not to take up the option, went back to Beergrove, and then I think Zoran Matic, who was my coach at Beergrove at the time, arranged. He was clearly moving to Adelaide City into the future, and he arranged for me to move to Adelaide City quietly behind the scenes. And he joined. That was in '85, and then he joined in '86, and away we went from there. Championship in '86, and some great times. Yeah, good memories.
A lot of fun back then because it's changed a lot. Especially we talk about women's football's changed a lot, but men's football's changed heaps. The landscape of it as well, from what it was back then to where it is now. Yeah,
they classed it as a semi-professional league at the time. I mean, we trained 4 nights a week. Our weekends when we played away, every second weekend, we'd either travel interstate. It was Melbourne. We'd travel on the Sunday morning, play the game on Sunday afternoon, on the plane straight back Sunday night, Monday morning back to work. If you went to Sydney, we'd have a flight out usually on the Saturday afternoon. Stay Saturday night, play Sunday, come back on Sunday night, and then off to work again. Jeez. Training 4 nights a week. We didn't play in those days for money. We got paid. We didn't get paid particularly well at all. When you consider, the amount of hours that we would put in, and certainly when you consider what players even in the EPL are being paid these days. It was all playing for love. You committed yourself, and you did the most that you possibly could. You committed yourself, your time, your effort, your energies. For the love of the game, for the passion, a bit of pocket money on the side, but fantastic times. And of course today, the equivalent of the old NSL, is the A-League. A very professional organisation. The way it's run, people might argue with some of the things in the way that the competition is and the strength or weakness of the competition, but. Yeah, very, very different now.
We had promotion relegation back then when you were playing. They're talking about bringing that back in. How do you find that's going to change the landscape or improve maybe local local
It wasn't
players?
back then. It wasn't so much promotion relegation. It was there were teams that just dropped off the radar.
A little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big financial burden for a lot of the clubs. It wasn't professionally run. You had your strong sponsors that would help. Some clubs were obviously, in particular the eastern states, were much financially stronger than many others. But you had clubs that couldn't sustain themselves financially, dropped off the map, and then ultimately, more often than not, would be replaced by somebody else.
Yep.
Very different here. It'll be interesting looking at the model. Being part of the Asian Confederation, the promotion relegation thing is mandatory. It needs to be in there.
Yep.
I know that FFA are under a lot of pressure, have been under a lot of pressure for years now, about having a true promotion relegation. How it's going to come into being, how it's going to work, when it's going to happen, or how it can happen over time. You bring in a second tier, which is great, but how is that second tier going to bridge the gap?
Yeah.
And the second tier will be strong, and on one-off games they'll be very competitive with most of the A-League teams, as will happen in state league. Playing against an NPL club team today, one-off will be competitive when the conditions are right. How it's all going to come together, the powers that be still need to make all that work and sell it to the public. There's a lot of energy and excitement, obviously, about having a second tier and a second division coming in. Lots of clubs are seriously interested in it, but there's a big difference in how those clubs can bridge the gap financially and in playing strength, structures, management, the whole.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Well, one club that's very interested is your former club as well, Adelaide City. You left them and retired at 91, and just not long after they won the championship. How was that for you to miss out on that?
Yeah, it was probably. Had I stayed on that year, maybe they wouldn't have won it.
Yeah,
that might have been the reason that they hadn't won it since '86. I don't know. It was for the guys, for the club. It was fantastic. And then of course they went on. I think it was a couple of years later. Won again. I think it was in '92, '93.
Yep.
Great times, great memories, and it's been a big club in South Australia for many years. From pre-NSL days. They had a bit of a hiccup when they did drop out of the NSL and picked up their pieces, but it's a strong club, well supported, well backed in many ways, and still ambitious, which is great.
Well, how do you feel playing for the two rivals? Because the rivalry between them, it's still almost there, but it's not what it used to be. But how did it feel from jumping ship?
Oh, it was difficult.
Yeah,
difficult in that when I did retire, when I retired from Adelaide City, I was out for 6 months or so, and then West Adelaide actually came knocking on the door. What are you doing? They were in the state league at the time, or in the local league, with a realistic chance of getting back into the NSL. So they actually got me out of my doldrum and pulled me back into playing, which I did in the local league, and then we got promoted back into the NSL, and West Adelaide got themselves back in, and I played half the year in the NSL. We played against Adelaide City, and it was tough. It was really hard playing against a group of guys, not only that I knew very, very well personally as great mates, but also knowing that my time was done. They were far too quick, far too strong for me, and that was, I think, for me, probably the biggest thing was, playing against my old team, where I still had strong feelings for, the memories and everything that we achieved, while at the same time, realizing that I can't compete anymore. As hard as I tried, they were still, too slick, too quick as a unit, as individuals, and you think, jeepers, tough on both fronts.
Yeah. Well, you got the tap on the shoulder to retire again. But this time you still stayed involved in soccer, and you went and played with assistant coach with West Adelaide, the West Adelaide Sharks, as they were known back then.
Yeah.
How was that? It was Raul Blanco.
That's right.
Yeah, and he
was with Raul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That last year at West Adelaide, the president of the club at the time, Harry Zacharianis, sadly, tragically died. Wonderful man, and a massive loss to the club. But he, a bit of a visionary, he pulled me aside one night and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mate, that's it. You need to come sit up in the stand. it's enough. And I think he saw the embarrassment that I was putting myself through. So I retired, but at the end of the year, I wasn't thinking about coaching. I didn't really know what I was going to be doing other than work.
Yeah.
Just focusing on those things. And then out of the blue, I got a phone call from Raul Blanco, who had been appointed the new coach at West Adelaide. Part of the strength of the future that West Adelaide were looking at about how they could move forward. They brought Raul over from Sydney. He talked me into coming into coaching as his assistant.
Yeah.
I was there for 4 years, which was we had a fantastic time, with Raul. And it was interesting with when you look at coaching styles. I had Zoran Matic as my coach for 10 years.
Yep.
Zoran, very tactical, defence orientated, playing on the break, but in a very, very structured way and a very disciplined way of doing things. Raul was a lot more flamboyant, very South American, very attack-minded, very creative, encouraging players to play with flair.
Yep.
Almost the exact opposite of the way Zoran would operate. And being involved in those games and then playing in the derby games, West Adelaide and Adelaide City, they were massive, massive occasions. I think Adelaide always came alive in those games.
Yep.
And simply because of the two contrasting styles, the way that Raul played and the way Zoran played at Adelaide City, the two teams coming together created just a massive entertainment of football. I don't think there was ever a game that you'd walk away from, the spectator would walk away and say, it's a rubbish game. Adelaide City won the vast majority of them. I think out of 20 or 21 derby games, I think City won 19.
Yep.
But I would think in every one of those games, West Adelaide supporters would have walked away talking about the game and, what about this? And we could have, if we scored this, and the entertainment value was huge. They were great times.
Well, Raul went away and went and coached the Olyroos. Was it Olyroos back then? Yeah, it was the Olyroos he coached.
That's right, yeah.
So you went for that. You ended up taking the role, which you were in for 2 years as a head coach. What was it like stepping up and taking over as a head coach? That's your first opportunity to do so.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
it was great. The years working with Raul, but it's interesting what you learn about yourself. Taking over from Raul, I felt I was ready to take over as the head coach, implement my ideas, and a lot of that was fine. But there's a lot more to coaching than purely working with the players on the park, and that's the stuff that I started to realise more and more. While Raul was the head coach and I was Raul's assistant, an assistant's role is very different than the head coach's role. The head coach is still the one who's very close to the player, does to the players' player management, the level of discipline, and the level of interaction with the players outside of the game, outside of the training pitch, in personal life and those sorts of things.
Yep.
When I took over from Raul, I was still working. I had my own business that I was running with building and electrical work that I was doing. Not a lot of time to stay in touch with players, not a lot of time to do any individual or group sessions during the day. So we'd get together at night time, we'd have our training sessions, come together for the games. But the amount of individual player management, team management that needed to happen, I wasn't really aware of and didn't start to wake up to until down the track. And I thought, jeepers, we're not going so well. I need to be talking to these people. Well, how am I going to find the time to do all of that? So it was a really good time for me in terms of doing the coaching, being involved in the game, being involved in the team environment. You can't play, but you can coach. So this is great. You're still right smack in the middle of the entertainment on the field and having an influence on what was happening. While the results were going well, then it's a fantastic environment, fantastic feeling. When results are not going well, it's different altogether. And that's where we had a couple of spells in there that were really, really tough. I think the first year, my first game as coach, we played Newcastle in Newcastle against John Kuzmina. Cosy was coaching that game. We were. I think from memory it was 1-0. It might have been 0-0 at half time. Very humid game. I remember the players coming in at half time and they looked tired. But, it was very humid. The grass was long. It was thick. But they'd done a great job. And I think it was 0-0 at half time. I'm pretty sure early in the second half we went 1-0 up. And, this coaching gig is easy. I'm sitting there thinking, well, guys are going great. This is really good. I think we were maybe 1-0 up for a few minutes, and 20 minutes later we were 6-1 down. It was 6 shots, 6 goals. Everything that went forward, bang, 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 bang. And then it could have been 7, the easiest one of the lot they missed. And that was it. The goal scoring stopped. And suddenly, you sit there scratching your head thinking, hang on, you can't, there's no time to react. There's no time to see anything, to analyse or assess what's actually going on. We walked off the park. We lost 6-1. First game in the NSL. I thought, my God, this is not as easy as I thought it was. And then we recovered. We ended up winning a few more games, and good times, good memories. But coaching is interesting.
Yeah.
Today in the professional world, communication, player management, all those sorts of things. You've got a network of people who are doing so much more within the club and with the coach. But you've also got a full-time program that enables you to spend as much time as you need to spend with players.
Yeah.
Back in those days it was a little bit different, but good days.
Yeah, well, as a coach, you got to coach some great players, but you also coach some players that have gone on to be great coaches as well. In our local game, we got Paul Pezos, who's doing great things at Adelaide City.
Yeah.
But there's also Ross Aloisi and Mark Brazelli, another local coach, and Joel Porter, another local coach as well. They've all had different careers, but someone like Ross Aloisi is now coaching at Brisbane Roar, when won the championship in Japan under Kevin Muscat. So these players that you had now going on to be great coaches, how's that feel, seeing that and watching their style and the way they're coaching these days?
It's pleasing just seeing players stay in the game.
Yep.
It would be great if more and more and more past players would stay in the game. Zoran Matic, when you consider his coaching days, the number of players that he coached that went on into coaching. I was there, Joe Mullen was there, Paul Shillaby has done some, Damien Morrie's done some, Neville Flounders, Bugty Niskelhush, Johnny Niskelhush has done, Johnny Perrin, who played with Zoran. There's a large number of players that had been involved with Zoran who went on into coaching, whether it was Zoran's influence or whether it was just the love that those players had. You could argue, I don't know, but much the same with these guys. Ross and Brazza, both played. They both played with Adelaide City and West Adelaide. I had them both at West Adelaide and actually played with Mark in that last year when I got the tap on the shoulder. And it's fantastic seeing these guys go on with the game. Joel, in that last year that West Adelaide was still alive before it was liquidated, and before he went on overseas and played in England as well. There are other players who I was fortunate to coach as well that went on into coaching. I think most of them are retired now because we're all old. But it's pleasing that players stay in the game, that they maintain, they hold that love for the game, that want to give back to the game.
What about Paul Pezos?
Pezos, yeah. He was a youngster, a little bit wayward at times, but such a talented kid.
He's someone that's got the potential to coach in the A-League, or even in the second division.
Yeah.
How do you see the way he's played? Because he's very dominant. The style they were playing last year, they were very dominant in the league. And they came up against Adelaide United, which was a big test for him, and they almost knocked him out. So of the Australia Cup. How's that feel to see someone like that now going on to coach?
Paul's done so well, because it's not just what he did at Adelaide City. He was successful with Adelaide City's women's team.
Yep.
He was successful at Adelaide United. Surprised that when he did actually leave Adelaide United, being in that environment.
Yeah.
But he knows himself why he left. As an outsider looking in, you think, wow, you're involved in an A-League club. You're involved in that environment with the coaches that were around him at the time. You think, you don't want to be leaving that. But obviously things weren't quite right for him to make that move. But then coming back and coaching Adelaide City, he's done such a fantastic job. Will he get an opportunity in the A-League? It's tough, very competitive, very hard. Your networking has to be strong. Your manager, agent, whoever you've got working for him to get up there. I hope he does get an opportunity. You don't know what you can do until you provide that opportunity. He needs to keep putting the yards on the board. One thing is that is really clear is that nobody is given an opportunity. You know, you have to earn and earn and earn, do all the hard yards, and that opportunity may not come, but he's doing all the right things in the sense he's involved. He's very successful. You know, continues to be successful. I'm assuming he's evolving himself. You know, he's developing himself in his coaching style, his people management style, all those sorts of things. And hopefully an opportunity will come from him.
Let's hope so. And also with Joel Porter, we talk about the Paul Pezov's coaching in the women's team as well. Joel Porter's in the WNPL, got Flinders United, a team that was in the WSL that was formed only a couple of years ago. He went from coaching in the local divisions, women's div, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but helping there, and he's made his way up into the coaching at WSL and then get them into WNPL. So a coach, someone of his caliber, who's a Socceroo, is played for some big clubs, but how good is it to see someone like that being involved in the game? Like you said, it's good to see players staying involved in the game, but making an impact like that to a club that's fairly new and doing something great for the women's game as well.
Yeah. And it's pleasing that it is in the women's game. You know, Joel, with his background, you know, with his pedigree, you know, could align himself, as most players do, into the male side of the game. You know, find the male club. He's found an area of enjoyment in the female side in the women's game, which is great. Being involved at Flinders, you know, the amalgamation of two clubs with Flinders and with Cumberland. You know, he's on the ground floor of a really exciting future with that club. And who knows? I don't know what his ambitions are. Whether, you know, he wants to continue on in the women's game. Will he want to continue on? Perhaps. You know, does the women's A League, you know, provide any incentive for him or not? But yeah, it is fantastic that he's involved and he's chosen that pathway.
Well, with yourself talking about opportunities and stuff like that, you ended up leaving West Adelaide, but you got an opportunity to go coach the Olyroos under Raul Blanco once again. Was it under? It was under. Raul.
Yeah.
How was that to go and do something different and coach a national team?
Yeah, that was special.
Yeah.
I was still the West Adelaide coach. West Adelaide was still still functioning, just when Raul got in touch and I was invited to come on board as the Olyroos assistant coach. That actually happened, I reckon, through 97, 98. There was the Olyroos came together for 3 games against Brazil. They had 1 game in Perth, one in Adelaide, another game I think was in Melbourne or Sydney. And Raul invited me on board for those 3 games to start off with, and that was a great experience. You know, just being involved with that group of Olyroos, and there was several players within that group who ultimately were part of the 2006, the golden generation.
Yep.
You know, when you think of people like Lucas Neal, Brad Emerton, Jason Chelina, Vince Grella, you know, that ilk, and then, you know, that was the beginning of their development, you know, for that group of players. So that was great. And of course, when West Adelaide were liquidated, you know, by then it had already been ratified that I was going to be the assistant coach for the Olyroos coming into Sydney Olympics, which was great. And then, you know, we had several camps at different times, you know, a few tours overseas as part of that preparation, and absolutely amazing feeling representing your country. I didn't get to play for the Socceroos. I didn't represent my country as a player.
Yep.
The feeling and the depth of feeling, standing prior to a game with the national anthem going.
Yeah.
Whether it was a friendly game, you know, the first game that happened in, you know, against Brazil in Perth. It was a big crowd there, and just standing there, just looking around the stadium and looking at the Australian flag, you know, while the national anthem was going on was, you know, it's something I'll never forget. You know, the emotion that was attached to that, the goosebumps, the feeling, the adrenaline, it's just and each time, you know, national anthems being played, you know, we're coming into a game and you know, coming into even the Olympic Games, first game against Italy in Melbourne.
Yep.
You know, 90,000 people at the MCG and our national anthem's being played. yeah, absolutely amazing.
That's unreal. Because I know what it feels like as a fan, sitting in the stands. I remember for the Asian Cup with the Socceroos playing South Korea in Suncorp Stadium, watching the flag and just being a part of it as a fan was unreal. The adrenaline for that. So I can only imagine what it is like as a coach. How do you focus though with that? Because having that feeling and knowing the excitement, the adrenaline, or does it just kick in once a national anthem finishes? Bang, into work mode.
There's a point where the game takes over.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how your mentality is, your mindset as you're coming in. Because I remember, while national anthem was going on, I'd literally pinched myself.
Yeah.
I looked around the stadium, looked behind me, looked all around, looked at what I could see. The atmosphere, how electric it was. So I looked across our bench, and all the players sitting on the ball, standing at that moment, with Raul and Les next to me, and looking around, thought, it's just, can this be real? Can this actually be happening?
That's amazing.
Then, the national anthem stops, the referee blows the whistle, calls the captains in, and it's game on.
Yeah.
It was game on.
Work mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how do you soak those moments in? Because we all forget to do that sometimes. We do something, think it's big, and like, you just live in. Sometimes we don't live in the moment, especially with phones these days. People are stuck in on that and don't really live in the moment. But what are some ways for you to remember it? Just sit there and just looking around. Is that what you do? Because I know some people, depending on their role, sometimes they get there early and just go for a walk in the middle of the pitch just to really soak in the atmosphere and just live in that moment so you can remember it, because it's not always going to be there.
It's an interesting thing, because I think it might be a little bit of age as well. As it came into it. When I remember when we played at the grand final in Sydney. We had the first leg in Adelaide, then we had the grand final in 1986, and we'd won the final. And if anyone had asked me, how many people were there of our supporters, or what were they doing when the final whistle went, I wouldn't have a clue. It was just euphoria in amongst us, the group of players, and didn't stop for a second to take in, what we were doing. Have a look around, you see, what you've actually achieved. Look at the stadium. Look at where did the ball end up when the whistle went. Who had the ball? I wouldn't have a clue. I just know the whistle went and we won this thing. Yeah. But as time has gone on, I've got a greater awareness, of those sorts of things, and I try where I can, if I'm in a circumstance where a player scores his or her first goal for a club or for that team, try and get them to stop just for a second and just take it in, have a look around you, have a look, where are your parents, where, just try and remember this day. This is a special moment. We don't realise, I can't remember when I scored my first goal. I can remember when I conceded my first goal or my first own goal, but there's a lot of those moments that happen in life will happen once, and when they happen once, they're special moments. And we should try and have a way or have a voice that helps us to hold on to that. Where it comes from, how it happens, don't know. Well,
because the reason why I asked is because when I got to a little bit different, I'm not a player, but got to MC for LA United, soaking that in. I got told to keep the team sheet, so I've got that still. The first team sheet that I got to do at Cooper Stadium, LA United and Sydney FC. So I remember that, but I still, because it was thrown at me last minute, I didn't really get to soak it in as much as I wish I could. But it's unreal, to those moments, trying to remember them, and it's amazing in the moment. You're just there. You don't really get to soak it in as much, but everyone has their own techniques, and it's good to be able to do that and just have something to remember it.
Yeah, it's we're emotional people. It's what it is that we feel in that particular moment, whether we're able to control that part of the emotion that makes us go wild. Still have the feeling. You can still feel. Whether it be the energy, the adrenaline, the want, the almost feeling that you want to cry, because you're so proud or so happy, or but all of that you want to take and soak in and try and capture everything that's happening around you without letting yourself go wild. How you do that, I'm not sure. I know better now.
Well, Yeah,
Not when I played.
Same as I would have done it a little bit different, but I did look up when Craig Goodwin scored, and I looked up at the crowd. I could hear them all cheering. I'm like, geez, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's an unreal atmosphere. I can only imagine what it's like as a player, being in the middle of the pitch with that crowd around you, 14,000, 15,000 people, and having to play with that. And just standing there on the sidelines listening to it was unreal, and just looking around, just witnessing a full stadium.
Yeah.
It's amazing, and we're going to see a packed stadium again for the World Cup, which is unreal.
Very special for all those players who get to experience anything like that.
Yeah,
it's a funny thing. The state team, South Australian state team, went to a tournament in India, of all places, in 1985, and it was called the DCM Cup that we played in Delhi Cotton Mills. We got together for a state team that told us about. We're going to a prestigious tournament. They didn't tell us where we were going. We had to go through the trial process. We actually trained at Enfield Victoria's ground for several sessions until they selected the final team. When they've called us in and selected the team and said, "Okay, well, you're going to the DCM tournament." The what? DCM tournament in India. And we thought they were taking the mickey out of us. What? We're going to India. Everyone was thinking, well, it's prestigious. We're going to go to Germany. We're going to England. We're going to the state teams. We're going to where? Who goes? Nobody goes to India. It was the most fascinating, most brilliant place ever. But we played the game. We had to we played against, I think it was the Bank of Seoul. We had to win or draw. I think it was maybe win the game to get through to the finals, the semi-final and final. And it was 0-0. That they were awesome. They were an amazing team. Nutmegging us, we could barely see the ball. They were just such a different level. But we hung in there 0-0. We got a free kick, not 30 metres from goals, whatever it was that I scored from. And Joe Janko, who everyone knows, our legend photographer, Joe was right next to the post. He was sitting there. I could see him beforehand with his camera all set up, and I've taken the free kick and it's swerved around. Somehow it's gone in. Brilliant. The crowd absolutely went berserk. I can't remember a thing about it. Yep. It's just a complete daze. All I can remember was scoring. Yep. And then I remember being in the change rooms after the game with people putting the Indian supporters putting their hands through the windows, wanting me to sign their money for good luck and all this sort of. They were putting money. I thought, I was looking, what are they giving me money for? And they just wanted signatures. Yeah. Sign, give it back to them so they would get some luck. And I said to Joe after the game, did you get a photo of it? Mate, I could see it was going in. I dropped my camera and I ran. I couldn't remember a thing about it. We talk about those moments. Yep. Was
he excited?
Yeah.
He forgot his job.
Yeah. He got excited.
That's
Everyone
great.
got excited. None of it. Everything was a complete blank for the rest of that game.
But you lived the moment.
Yeah, yeah, we do, and that excitement, that energy, that adrenaline when it hits you in those circumstances, and for these girls coming in the World Cup, and hopefully the Matildas do brilliantly well, and I hope they have many moments like that where they've got the whole stadium on their feet and they don't remember what it was that they did so well other than win.
Well, that's all for part one of my chat with Adrian Santrac. Part two out soon. Here's a quick snippet of what to expect.
Was the fittest group of players that had ever been put together. We had a couple of little golden gems, that little dark secrets that other countries weren't ready for. Lisa Divana was one of them. Yep. Lisa was identified through our youth teams, through the national youth team at the time, and we brought her into our camps and started to introduce her into our type of football. Very raw kid. Very interesting upbringing that Lisa had, but amazing talent. So raw, so unpredictable, and so explosive.
That's all from Adrian Santrac, the former Matildas coach and current under-13s girls coach at Fulham United. Make sure you subscribe to Kicking It Local wherever you get your podcasts so you can get a taste of the SA football community. Plus, follow Kicking It Local SA on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss any of the action. See you soon.